Welcome to Our View, the podcast, where we're changing the conversation about disability one story at a time. Here at Our View, we're all about education, awareness, and shifting perspectives. With each episode, we dive into honest, meaningful conversations with individuals from across the disabled community, amplifying voices, sharing lived experiences, and challenging the way society sees disability. Because disability isn't a limitation, it's a part of the human experience. So pull up a seat and join us as we broaden the view and bring real, powerful stories into focus. This is Our View. I'd like to welcome everyone back to a new episode of Our View, the podcast where we aim to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I'm your host, Arthur Aston, and today I'm joined with my guest, Rosemarie Philip. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Yes. So to start off, can you share your story with us? You can share as much or as little as you would like to.
Oh goodness, that's a loaded question.
Yes. Yes.
Um, oh goodness. A little about me. I think the most honest way to answer that is I'm someone learning how to stay human in this world that is constantly glorifying overextension and demanding us to abandon parts of ourselves. And so I think that's kind of how my story begins, essentially, is that, some of those parts you're like taught to abandon, right? In society. For me, living with chronic illnesses, I live with a lot of invisible disabilities, and some of those are endometriosis, adenomyosis, um, primary immunodeficiency, long COVID. The list just goes on, because we tend to have a lot of comorbidities. But, for a long time, I, really believed that strength meant pushing through all of those things and those experiences and minimizing my needs and just proving that I could carry way more than I actually could um, in order to like prove my worth essentially. And, you know, eventually over time, I realized that that way of living wasn't actually strength, that it was disconnection from myself and frankly, from like everyone around me, everyone that I loved, everyone that I worked with, everyone that I served in the work that I did. Um, and so, it's disconnection from what makes us human. Um, that's, kind of the crux of the story, for me in my exploration of kind of remembering my own humanness, over time, because we're so often told to forget that in our daily lives. And so, I'm also an organizational culture consultant. I'm a coach. I'm a friend. I'm a founder. I'm a partner. I'm a music lover, a nature lover. All those other things that are parts of me too. Um, and those parts tend to be more honored, right? And by society and oftentimes from my own internal ableism, those parts are honored more too, by myself sometimes. Um, so yeah, I'm just someone that's imperfectly learning and unlearning about that, and trying to stay human in all of those roles that I play in life. Yeah.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. I was sitting here just going like, yes, yes, exactly, right. Just to keep, like you said, to stay human in a world that is constantly spinning and
And
just
telling us not to
moving.
be,
Yeah, and
right?
oh my goodness.
To
And
numb and shut off and
yes.
disconnect. And And
Yes,
not,
and
you know,
overextending ourselves and everything
mhm.
else. And it's just, it's okay to take a break. I just, I'm in New Jersey, as people who have listened to this podcast will know. And we're recording this, it's February 26th, I think. So we just got, where I live, we got like a foot of snow. And then other places got up to 2 feet of snow. And I was invited to a conference this week down in Atlantic City. So I was actually snowed in Atlantic City, which was wonderful.
Oh, okay.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I needed the 2 days free.
Yes,
And I had
agreed.
my computer and I did like very minimal work, but I spent time with the people I was with and just roamed around, met new people. We were all there snowed in together and it was great. And everything is, and I came back and everything was fine. Like it's amazing how that works, right?
That
Not,
forced you to be intentional
yes,
in the
yes.
space that
And
you were in and to be present where you
exactly. And
were.
taking a break, and there was nothing we could do about it. We were all snowed in the same spot and, made the best out of it. And it was
Yeah.
it was great. And as I said, I have neighbors who are, wonderful people. They checked in on me to make sure I was still coming back because they were, snowed in. And I was like, yeah, I
Uh,
said I'll be back. And just like you said, to just remain human in all of the things that are going on, and whether it be a snowstorm or whatever, um, it's really necessary to stay connected to yourself and who you are. So, and as you said, in all your
yeah.
other roles of who you are as a friend and a founder and a partner, and just to stay true to you is to yourself is so important. So thank you for sharing it the way that you did. I appreciated that.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm really good at being human, but I'm not
Yes,
necessarily good at accepting that humanness, right?
true.
Like I'm going to be
Yes.
learning that the rest of my life.
Yes. Yes,
So
like you said, the learning and unlearning of certain things, I think that is a constant thing that people do deal with. So I really appreciated the way that you explained all of that. So thank you.
thank you.
So as you mentioned, that you are a person who is living with different chronic illnesses, and they, have impacted your life in different ways.
Oh yeah.
So can you share how some of these illnesses have impacted your life and how it has shaped your view of the world and how you experience and interact with the world around you?
I love that question.
Thank you.
Fits with your theme of our view. I love that.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
I mean, there's the obvious impact, right? Like the financial, emotional, physical impact of just, you know, having to exist in a body that doesn't always cooperate. Actually, 99% of the time does not cooperate with what I might have planned for that day. Um, but, also just the years of delayed diagnoses and having to fight for diagnoses and being believed. A lot of medical gaslighting. Um, the years of treatment and like learning, like with my primary immunodeficiency, for example, like I've had to learn how to do plasma infusions. And so I do those every 2 weeks now. And thankfully, I have the kind that I can travel with it and all of that. So I have a lot more flexibility than some other patients. Um, but, the insurance battles of trying to get things covered, that financial burden. I've had more than a dozen surgeries along the way, for endometriosis. And so, there's like those obvious impacts, but might not be so obvious to um, someone who might have never experienced illness in their life, right? Other than maybe getting the flu or the cold or things like that. Versus when I got the flu or the cold, I would be bedridden for quite some time because I didn't have I didn't develop antibodies to fight that. Um, but there's also, that constant negotiation with my energy and capacity, with pain, with risks taking, with my desires, you know? Um, and I think the deeper impact of like how I see the world because of those experiences, when you've had a near death experience, you see the world in a different way. You live in the world in a different way. Um, and
So true. That's so true.
it really, yeah, like different seasons of illnesses and even how different illnesses have affected me in different ways, like endometriosis, I'd always known, I'd learned, it honestly had been such a big part of my life and such a big piece of my pain that there was a comfort with it over time, right? And not true comfort, but you know what I mean. Um, and I had been an advocate in that space for 20 years, and then I get this other diagnosis with primary immunodeficiency, and I had to learn things all over again. I had to learn how to advocate for myself in a totally different way. Whereas I knew and could guide patients in how to do that in endometriosis and some of the other illnesses. But it was a whole new world learning how to infuse. And I hate needles and had a terrible fear of needles. Well, I have to do my own infusion. So you like just those things. Um, but I think the biggest thing is that, illness has and having an invisible disability too, it's really taught me how to live in the in between. And I don't like that space, but learning to befriend it and to allow that like grief and joy, the bittersweet, the loneliness, the gratitude, like all to coexist at once, and that there's not one that's better than the other, essentially. And so, and just yeah, learning to have that as part of your existence, that's taught me a lot, and that's how it's really been incorporated into the work that I do as a consultant and coach, and a lot of my advocacy work, because I do see things differently because I'm never not living in that in between. Um, and it's also taught me a lot about ableism, both external and internal, and just what it means to exist in a body where, it doesn't always comply with what is required. And I wouldn't even say necessary, but just required in some of our day to day. And where our limits are often treated as inconveniences instead of just it is, you know, and where, worth is tied to this really strange measure of productivity. Like, I wouldn't even say it's about productivity itself, it's around how we measure productivity. And so, you know, living with these illnesses, it's given me grit, it's given me perspective, it's definitely I often say like I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not fully living because of that experience. And so, yeah, so that's really shaped like how I try to show up in the world, and not see disability as a limitation, which I think a lot of people might have that view, and even unknowingly. Um, I think it's the limitations and the norms that we've had to accept or are forced to accept, essentially. So yes, that plays a lot into the work and that I do, but also just the relationships that I have, and how I interact with people in the world. That's kind of the lens that I come from.
Yes, that is again a great answer. I love how the two things can coexist. It's, I'm not having a great day, but I'm also grateful. It's both things can be true.
Like I'm in so much pain, but man, like especially I feel like the bedridden days, they're so
Hmm.
hard and I hate them. I hate them so much when they happen.
Hmm.
But then like the those little things like the sunlight that's hitting in from the window while you're in bed and you actually get to feel that like and you feel that sensation and it brings you so much joy in that moment like you don't taste that
Hmm.
unless you've experienced that, right? and
Right.
and so it's that bittersweet and you know um and so if they don't coexist, it's like how we talk about where if you numb one emotion, you're numbing them all. um and because our brain can't really like differentiate that, and so when you experience those types of things, or even just how people might treat us differently sometimes,
Right.
when you experience those things, it it builds this like layer of awareness, and like a hypersensitivity to those moments that can truly bring you so much joy.
Yes. It's really I just love all of what you're saying. It's just really it's so true because I can relate to it. Uh, again, with having, not having a good day, but still finding some type of joy somewhere, like you said, even if it's in just the sunlight shining through your window and you feeling the warmth of the sun, the sun rays shining through. Um, both things can be true. It's just really what
Yeah, like I
you,
don't know
how
if
you choose to find it. Yeah.
and I don't know if like you're in pain right now. Like I'm in pain right now, but
Hmm.
I'm loving this conversation
Yes.
and getting to
Yeah.
meet you, right? Two
Yes.
things can be true.
Exactly. Yes, the cold weather is not friendly to me or my body. So it's
You know.
so most days in the winter it's like, I'm stiff or something, but it's
Yeah.
like you said, you find the joy and you get through you work through all of that, but then also knowing the time when when it's necessary for you to, stay in bed a little longer and just take that in as well and just find the grateful part of that of knowing knowing your limitations as well.
Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah.
But yes, I am enjoying this conversation so much. I really appreciate it. And I can remember throughout my life, just, sharing with like my mom, about a tough day that I'm having and because she's a mom, it's always, but you can get through this and you'll be fine. And one time I just told her, can you just say like this, like you understand that this sucks? And like, I
Yeah.
believe everything you're saying. I know I'll get through it. I know it's just a temporary thing. But
Yeah.
can you just feel me on this and just say, like, I'm sorry, this sucks for you? And she goes, oh, okay, that's what you need from me. I'm like, yes. Like that's exactly what I need from you in this moment, just to say, like, I'm sorry, this sucks for you. Like
Yeah.
I need somebody to go down that path with me for just a second.
And
And
that's not what we're like taught as
right.
as a culture, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And as
but
and our family is we're a religious family, so it's, she's offering a Bible verse or a song or something. I'm like, I know all of that. I get it. I appreciate it. It's always there in me, but like in this moment, I just need you to say like this
Mm.
sucks for you and I'm sorry. And she's like, okay, yeah, like I'm down for that too, but I didn't think that's what you needed. Like I need that right
Yeah,
now.
because we have
Yeah,
we
no.
have to like purge that, allow it to actually move through us. Otherwise, it
Right.
just keeps getting layered and layered and layered, and it
Hmm.
builds an armor. It really
Exactly.
does.
Yeah.
And when we build that armor, we're actually also yes, we're trying to protect ourselves, and that's
Hmm.
necessary a lot of the time too. But then that's also closing us off from the connections that we need too.
Right. Exactly.
It's such a fine line, you know?
It is.
Um,
It is, and it's great. It's great to have like a conversation like this to, really explain it and to talk it out and like you said, to describe that very fine line of, what is needed in those moments, and from your people in your inner circle, and what is it that you need from them to to help get you through. And a lot of times it's, yeah, the encouraging words and everything that's very, very helpful. It's, that they mean it. And, um, but then sometimes it's just like, I need you to just, sit with me
Sit
in
with.
this crazy moment for a minute and just
Yeah.
like we won't stay here too long, but just just go
And
here
it's
with me
okay
for a
if it is
second.
end up being long.
Right.
Like,
Right.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, like, if you think about, like I had mentioned armor before, you know, if you get a wound and you're putting armor over that, that does not allow the wound to actually heal. It has to breathe. It needs,
Right.
um, and so yeah, allowing that to, instead of embodying it, allowing it to actually come out in some way, shape,
Right.
or form. And I mean, I know it's those hardest moments. I've experienced other things outside of chronic illness. I've experienced deep loss and
Hmm.
things like that too. And but when you are at your most vulnerable and you're not feeling well and like all the things are piling on, that deep loss grief just bubbles up if I haven't dealt with
Right.
it, right? Like, and you have no choice but to face it. Otherwise, it just, keeps festering and not allowing you to actually then be able to take care of yourself in the way that you need to.
Hmm.
And I really
Yeah.
sucked at that for a very long time.
Yes.
I was like,
Yes.
numb, 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 numb.
Right.
Like, that's the way to go. Yeah.
Yes, we're always learning and evolving, and yes, when we know better, we do better, and all those things. Yes. So, but yeah, that
Yeah.
is true. Yeah, it's
And like
wow.
often masking, right? Like I got
Yes.
really good at masking
Hmm.
my pain, in order to not be looked over for the next role
Right.
or, things like that,
Hmm.
and so then you don't open yourself up as much. But, the beautiful thing is now that I'm much more open about my disabilities and especially, I'm self-employed. So, when I go through the contracting phase with organizations or individuals, I'm honest about my capacity and what
Hmm.
that might look like and how that actually shifts
Right.
sometimes. It's
Yes.
not the same from day to day.
Right.
And so these are the expectations, these are the things that um that I just honest about it. And the more that I brought that out
Hmm.
and truly stepped into my full self in the workspace, the more people came forward with their own disabilities that they'd been hiding, and 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 they were able to be more of their full selves with me, which makes my work a lot easier since
Right.
all of mine's around, building culture and relationships and connection and things like that. So, um, yeah, it's just it's a really beautiful thing when you see that shift,
Hmm.
because it's so opposite of
Yeah.
how we're expected to
Yeah.
show up in the world.
So true. Yes. Wow. So the next question, I would like for you to talk about a life well loved, which is you founded this, and Can you just talk about what a life well loved is and what inspired you to create it? I love the name. And
Thank
so,
you.
and I can, just hearing you talk, I can already, feel like where it all came from. But can you just share what inspired you to create a life well loved?
So there was a saying that a childhood mentor had shared with me that just has stuck with me through all of the muck that's happened in my life. And it's loving the simple things in life will bring you a world of joy. And kind of, what we had talked about earlier, those bedridden days where you feel the sunlight and that's amazing, right? Like those kinds of things that really help you still love the life that you are in, and that you have the opportunity to live out. Um, and there's so much when you look at the well-being space or wellness space. It's so much around putting a mask on and not being your full self um, and overextension in so many things. And so I wanted to create a space where people could explore their own humanness and do it in a learn tools like that do like the deep work of well-being, not the band-aid approach kind of thing. Um, and I wanted it to be an accessible space too. And what better way to learn about those things than from people who live that day in and day out? And the disabled community is who we need to learn from, frankly. And so essentially, a life well loved is this online learning space where we do a lot of things that are resources and courses and tools that center around well being. So things like grief, navigating change, moving your body, learning, what really matters most to you and how to fully step into that, and how you live and lead. Um, those kinds of things. Like, who better to learn about grief than from a licensed therapist who's also disabled, and understands grief in a very different way. And so, um, and I'm a firm believer that the more that we connect as humans, the more that we can better understand each other and actually see each other as human. And I think that's a big way to erode ableism is by being able to, it's what you're doing with this podcast and with your nonprofit. The more we humanize each other, um, the better our relationships will be. And so yeah, so that's why I created a life well loved, and just learning to allow those things to coexist, that two things can be true. I can be grieving and still experience joy and still love and all the things. So a year ago, last March, we actually tested the learning space with a free course on endometriosis, and it's 112 lessons. Um, Not all the other courses and tools are like that. It's just a space I'm very, very, very passionate about, because there's a lot of misinformation about that disease. And so my dear friend Kate, who's a board certified patient advocate, and I created this course, and we partnered with a lot of the top endometriosis experts in the world and advocates throughout the world, to create this free course, which always will be free. That's something we've always agreed on. And so we did a test launch there. And then in June, we launched a Life Well Loved, the entire platform where we have all of those well-being resources. And so it's, it's a platform for humans. It's just led by disabled professionals. Um, and so, yeah, and we have always, it's a true collaborative, all of the instructors, they're just really beautiful humans. And, we worked really hard on building out our guiding principles and values and what we want to stand for and how we even want to offer things. And so, I've always in my business done economic justice pricing models, and so that you'll see that there. Um, because we don't want, this is very human work and we don't want anyone to be turned away. So yeah, that's a life well loved.
Thank you for sharing that and for the work that you do with a life well loved. That is, I love the quote that you said as well. I have to write that down and put that as a screensaver or something because it's a great it's a great quote to keep coming back to, especially in the work that we're doing. And
Yeah.
you find a lot of small things, a lot of small joys in this work that we do, and it's really really rewarding for me, as I shared with you, and I've shared on the podcast before. One of the programs we have is the Miracle League, and um, it's been quite a few years now. But one of our adult players, he came over to me one day when I was in the outfield just watching the game, and he didn't make eye contact with me. He just stood next to me and he said, "So my mom tells me you run this thing." And I said, "Well," I said, "kind of." I said, "It's a team of us." And he goes, "She said you run this." And I said, "Okay." I said, "We can go with that." And he said, "That's really cool." He said, "I'd like to do something like this one day too."
Oh.
And so it's just like, oh my goodness, like the work that we do is so important. And it's
Mhm.
like I think that, I like to think that our nonprofit is, helping families and the people in our communities, and just, knowing that people are giving, that much back to me as well, is really, really a great feeling to have. So,
That's beautiful.
yeah, so it's just really, it's great in that you're working, with the program there and just offering these different courses, like you said, on different topics for grief and other, other topics, and led by people in the disability community is, we're great people to learn from. We have all the, experiences that we have, and can talk about many, many different things. So,
And we know how to navigate those things with like micro steps.
yes.
You know, I
Hmm.
I think I think that's something that's really missing a lot in the well-being space is there's supposed to be these
Yeah.
big changes, right? But when you're bedridden,
Hmm.
you
Right.
have to do small things,
It all
right?
changes.
So
Yeah, that changes a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's manageable.
Hmm.
It's something that can be incorporated into your daily life. And that's why I love learning from our disabled community because we automatically approach things from that perspective.
Yes.
Um, and and that's a great way to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my last question is like I'm combining the last two questions kind of into one two-part type of question.
Sure.
And so that is, can you share with our listeners a few resources? They can be books, movies, websites, that they can explore on topics related to the things that we've talked about. And then also, can you share where people can find you on social media so they can get involved with the work that you do and a life well loved?
Thank you.
Yes.
You can find us at alifewellloved.com and also my name, rosemariephilip.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, and then under Instagram, I am still.rosemarie. And on those sites, actually on rosemaryphilip.com, or if you go on my Instagram, I have like a link tree where you can get a lot of different resources, including our free endo course. I actually have a bookshop list that has like how social good is a theme for, a lot of books that are my favorites. There's one for chronic illness. There's a list for living a life well loved. So you'll find a lot of my favorites there. But off of the top of my head, some of my favorites are Tiffany Yu just published the Anti-Ableist Manifesto, and it's a fabulous resource in really understanding ableism and disability. And she leads this organization called Diversibility, which I'm a part of their leadership collective. But they also have a access through a Facebook community. And it's a lovely disability space to be in. So, highly recommend those. The National Disability Institute does a lot of great work for those who are businesses wanting to better understand the disability space, but also for those who are disabled, who a lot of us are entrepreneurs. And so, how do you build a business and all of that? So, I've found some really great resources through them as well. But some of the topics that we cover today, some books that I think have really helped me, um, Permission to Feel. And it's actually, I use it a lot professionally, and it's all about understanding emotions and being able to name those emotions, not just I'm happy or sad. We have a lot more emotions than that, right?
So true, yes.
So those are the easy ones. Um, but yeah, and it gives a great framework for how to actually give yourself the permission to feel and name that and strengthen relationships because of it, and both as a leader and just as a human in general. Um, I also really like Set Boundaries, Find Peace is another really great book around understanding our capacity and how to set those boundaries. Um, and then Quick Calm, led by actually someone with endometriosis, Dr. Wolken, and it's a she's a neuroscientist, and it's a lot of different very short, like they're all meant to be like 5-10 minute little meditations for helping you reground, and just again, it's those micro moments that are really important because we do exist in a world that requires overextension a lot, and so um, I find it as a really helpful tool, especially when overwhelmed, to come back to that. Rest is Resistance is a fantastic book as well, because it really flips it on its head of what our understanding of what rest really means outside of just taking a nap, right? It's not that at all. And it's about like going against that grain of overextension and burnout, which a lot of folks are feeling right now. So yeah, so those are some of my favorites and some of the topics that we've discussed. But you can also find more of those on either of my websites, or on Instagram or LinkedIn. I have it tagged as well. So
Thank you so much for all of the those resources. I will myself be looking into some of those books to to read for this year for sure. As you mentioned, Tiffany's book was really great. I read that.
oh, good.
Such a necessary book
Yeah.
to learn about ableism and being anti-ableist, and it's a great book. So I will
I also like
definitely. Mhm.
Demystifying Disability is another really good
Yes.
one. I
hmm
really like that one too. Do you have any other favorites?
So the book that I like to refer people to. It's called A Disability History of the United States by
Oh,
Kim Nielsen, Nielsen. And it just goes through the history of what disability has meant in the United States uh, throughout time, and how people were thought of contributors to uh, to society, no matter what. They could always participate.
mm,
That's how, some Native American tribes have, looked at disability. They were always a part of the community, and somehow they always had something to contribute. And then it just takes you up through time of the different laws that have been passed in the United States to um, that were, meant to help improve the lives of those of us living with disabilities throughout time. And
and that we're having to fight right now
yes,
to keep.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
It's a
a
scary
really
time for us right now.
it is. It is. And this is a book I've read more than once over, the last 10 years or so. But just like as you said, um, the topic is still relevant today because now, all the work that has gone on and the laws that have been passed, we're having to fight to keep them in place, um, currently. And
Yeah.
it's really just, it's a scary time for a lot of people, including those in the disability community. Uh, so that's a book that I like to read. And then I also love just different memoirs and autobiographies of different people with disabilities that I just really enjoy hearing and reading about other people's stories of how of how they come through their experience of living with disabilities, whether they were born with it or they've acquired the disability later in life. And
Yeah,
it's
that's a
always
whole nother
yes.
topic because
Yeah.
when the long COVID community really looked to the disability community
Hmm.
because it was, so many people that were marathon runners and mountain bikers and all these things, right? That then suddenly um, everything changed.
Yeah,
And that is a very different lived experience than
it is.
being born with. Like,
It is.
it's a very different experience.
It is.
And so even though I found, like, even though there were a lot of tools and things that I could share, there's also some things that, like, I wouldn't be able to understand. I could empathize, but
Hmm.
not fully understand. That, that shock, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that made me just think of a family friend that we had. He has since passed away, but he became an amputee after the age of 70.
Oh, wow.
And I went to see him when he was in the hospital, and he stopped me before I even said anything, and he said, "I was just talking about you yesterday." And I said, "Oh, really?" And his two nieces were there with him, who are, adults in their, in their 50s. And he said, and they were both here. He said, "So I'm not lying." He said, "I was talking about you yesterday." And he goes, "Because I was having a really crappy day." And he said, and I was just trying to figure out how am I going to do this? And, I lost my leg and I don't know how I'm going to do this and function and live life. And he said, and out of nowhere, you came to mind.
Mm.
He said, and I thought, well, wait, Arthur drives a car and Arthur does this. And oh, well, I'll be fine. Arthur got through this, and I told him, I said, I appreciate that I was able to get you out of your moment. I said, and at the same time, you're allowed to have your moment.
Yeah.
I said, this is all I've known my whole life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, and all you've known for, up until a few days before that is having two legs that worked.
Yeah.
I said, so I appreciate again that I was able to, bring you out of that and you were able to snap out of it, but have your moment because it
Mhm.
is something totally different. Um, but yeah, I'm here to offer that encouragement for you if you need it.
Thank
And live and in living color is, but have your moment and really sit with what this means for you because it's a different thing.
Life Well Loved, when we reference ableism, we use Talila Lewis's definition
Hmm.
of ableism because it's ever changing. Because essentially it's whoever's being othered,
Yes,
right? Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and so we use that as the foundation uh, of everything that we do when we talk about ableism in our space.
Yes, because there are different definitions of it, and it's but it's such an important topic to talk about ableism, and as you expressed earlier, the external and the internal ableism. As somebody who lives with a disability, there is the internal ableism as well,
Yeah, that
that
self-talk is
exists.
real.
Yeah, yeah, I was going to say the things that we tell ourselves and start to
Yeah.
believe because we say it so often, and yeah, that self-talk, the internal conversations we have, and what we start to believe about ourselves, and one of the reasons why I started this podcast to have these types of conversations to
Mhm.
really um, hear people's stories and their experience of living with a diagnosis, and how it impacts them individually, and in their spaces that they, travel throughout throughout their communities throughout the world.
Mm.
So, yeah, so thank you again for this conversation. I really enjoyed it and have learned a lot, and we'll be looking up some of those books that you mentioned, and definitely look
Thank
forward to staying in
you.
touch.
Yes, please do. Please do stay in
Yes.
touch.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Our View, the podcast, where we amplify the voices and stories of those in the disabled community, one conversation at a time. If this story moved you, taught you something new, or sparked a different perspective, we'd love to hear from you. Write a review of the podcast on Apple Podcast and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Follow us on all social media platforms at Our View for Life 25. At Our View, we believe that disability is not a limitation, it is a powerful part of the human experience. So until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep seeing the world through our view.